Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with a special guest today. Please welcome to the podcast none other than Joel L. Barnes.
Some
of you might have known him from Maverick City with the song Promises, or maybe whoever else you've worked with.
We did the Old Church Basement, Miracles.
There you go.
That,
Miracles.
Wake Up, Community Music, there's a bunch of things.
There you go. I mean, there's no way to keep up with all the projects.
Oh, God.
So, but we have the privilege to have him here today. He's a part of the Anchor Music Worship Collective, and they're recording an album. So it sounds fantastic. I mean, some of the music that I heard already is pretty juicy. It's anointed.
It feels good. It's feeling very solid.
Tell me about that last song you sung on today. It kind of had like I think you came in toward the end and it had like a more of a ancient holy.
Oh yes.
Almost like Hebrew kind of.
Very, very Hebrew.
Okay.
Giving like in the middle of the wilderness, like cloud by day, fire by night. Feel like that's the image that I think I get in my head whenever like we sing songs like that. Like,
right.
It's like very ancient, something new but old. I don't know. It's weird.
I love that. I love songs that kind of have like an ancient ethereal kind of vibe to it. It's like crazy. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. What do you do?
I'm born and raised in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Been in love with music my entire life.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say this or I should say this. Didn't want to be a worship leader at first.
Oh, okay.
I originally grew up on like, of course my mom like was like the one that was playing all the gospel in the house, right?
Yeah.
My older brothers and siblings, not so much. So
I
grew up with like my older brother John, like constantly playing like R&B. So like Hill and Cisco and Jill Scott and Lauryn Hill like a lot and music. Erykah Badu. Oh yeah. So like Usher. Oh my God, he bought me my first Usher album when I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
It was the 8701. So it was the one that got You Remind Me. You Got It.
Right.
So I grew up like that.
Yeah.
The age was like 6 to like 16. I wanted to be an R&B artist. I'm like, I want to sing in the air. I want to sing in the rain. I want to.
Right.
My mom was like,
Yeah.
You gonna sing something spiritual. You gonna sing for the Lord.
That's right. Yeah.
And ain't nothing else. So but I don't know. I got involved in songwriting at an early age. My brother would take me on trips, and we would songwrite the entire way there and the way back.
Yeah.
I always loved singing. My mom constantly had us singing at church. Constantly singing at talent shows in middle school, high school. Like, music was always my like initial first love as far as like practically on earth speaking. Like, I was in love with music at a young age, and I knew then, I was like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. Okay.
So my next question was going to be, when did you first know that you were called to walk out what you're walking in your life today? Yeah, so is that probably the moment you would say is like when you were young, you're like, this is what I'm going to do?
As far as music, yes.
Yeah.
As far as being a worship leader, songwriter on this side, no.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to do music the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I have this theory in my head that like people always have like what is called, I call defining moments, where they're presented with a scenario. They don't really know it in the moment. That's in the moment, but they're presented with a scenario, and this decision will now set course to the next few directions that will lead to two completely different outcomes. Yeah. So I think my defining moment was when I was in like 7th grade. Because I equally love basketball. Most people don't know. I love basketball.
Oh, okay.
So 7th grade, I try out for middle school basketball team. Make the first round. And everybody always says, you make that first round, most of the time you solid. Like, right. Because they're going to cut everything. So it's like, made the first round. All I had to do was show up to second round. Yeah. That would have been okay. Yeah. But one of my older brothers, different older brother, was like, hey, I'm going to the studio today. I want you to come with me as soon as you get off the bus. Yeah. So I was supposed to stay after school. Yeah. And go to the tryout. Yeah. But I was like, nah, I'm going to the studio. Right. I'm going to the studio. And the song is terrible. I would never let anybody hear it, like whatever. But
you got to air it out now.
But I think that moment, like for me, like like solidified and cemented something in me that I'm like, I love basketball, but music, something about music makes my heart come alive. So I think I knew then at a young age, I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
I didn't know I wanted to do worship until I was about 20.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I was about 20 and I started traveling with Eddie James then.
Okay.
And that 4-year journey of traveling with him, I had no concept or understanding of what like worship culture was. Back then, my perspective was praise is the fast songs, worship is the slow songs.
Yeah.
Like, and most of it, and at that time, it was gospel, and then it was my only reference for CCM was like casting crowns.
Right.
So it's like I didn't. Which interestingly enough, I went on a cruise when I was 16, and they were there, and it was But I recognized on that 4-year journey with Eddie, I'm like, oh, I really love worship. Like, it for some reason, something about the texture of it gives me a freedom to like say things that like weigh a little differently. I can be a little bit more Shakespearean in my approach of songwriting. Yeah. Like I don't know, something about like the language felt different. Like I'm a really big like nerd, and I love words, and I love trying to find different words to like describe a moment. Instead of saying mountain, like every worship record has mountain in it. Right, yeah. So I would choose a word like summit instead. You know what I mean? Like that like adds a different texture. And
it's approaching it from a different angle.
And it's a more or less common like word used in worship. It's like, but all that I had to say, like I knew at like 20. Yeah.
Okay. When you write, because you were kind of going off on a depiction of like a little bit of your process and your style, would you kind of relate it to like a prism of light where you have these different colors and angles that you approach writing?
Absolutely.
Like a prism. Oh, that's cool, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think for me, I say this a lot of time, like I feel like my frame of reference for songwriting and music itself, I'm one big melting pot of all of the different genres that I've been immersed and baptized into. So like I was explaining earlier, like my house was music everywhere. Yeah. So it was a big melting pot of music everywhere. Yeah. Like you walk into my mom's room, gospel. You're gonna hear the Winans, you're gonna hear Fred Hammond, you're gonna hear Kirk, you're gonna hear the Clark sisters, you're gonna hear like church. Yeah. You walk into my older brother's room. Yeah. You're gonna, like I said, you're gonna hear R&B. You're gonna hear the neo souls. You're gonna hear like all the things. Joe. Right. Walk into my other brother's room. You're gonna hear a bunch of hip hop and rap. So you're gonna hear Young Jeezy. You're gonna hear Young Buck. You're gonna hear Bun B. You're gonna hear like Lil Wayne was really heavy back then. You're gonna hear all these different like hip hop artists. Walk in my sister's room. It's more like R&B pop. So you're gonna hear like B2K, and you're gonna hear Chris Brown, you're gonna hear Neo, you're gonna hear Beyonce, you're gonna hear that like back in Destiny's Child, like you're gonna hear like pop music. Wow. And then my dad was the one that was introducing me to music I never heard before, so he was listening to like Tracy Chapman, and Hootie and the Blowfish, and Frey, and like I'm like, that's crazy. One big your dad, my dad, my dad, and listening to India Irie, I'm like, who is this lady? And the language that she's using, what in the world? Like, he was listening to Amy Winehouse. You know what I mean? He was listening. Yes. Wow. Like, he was listening to so much different music. I'm like, this is good, and it was a great introduction to something different. So now I think in my style of writing, I think, like you said, it's a prism. So like light comes in, and out of these different backgrounds and these different like textures of different approaches, they all like link together and somehow create this like beautiful piece of like a tray of language that I'm able to use and pull bits and pieces from to create such a like image like in songwriting. It's a weird way of explaining it, but that makes sense. That's awesome, man. That's crazy. I love hearing people's processes, and I've been fortunate enough to do a couple of like writer sessions around LA, and they weren't like worship sessions, but they were. It was really fun to just see the different processes of different artists and producers, you know, and then what we can all bring together out of that, you know. So it's always cool to hear that, because I feel like on worship songwriting these days,
you know, you look at a song. Sometimes when I'm at Bethel, I look up at the screen for the lyrics, and then there's like 10 writers.
Oh my God.
So on the credits, you're like, wow, there's so many writers, and you're like, how did that work? Like, how does that come together? And when you're doing like collaborations, what's the process on that for you? Is it like, we're gonna, like, because I heard Lucas talking about some of you guys' sessions a little bit, how it is when you sit down, but how is it with, I don't know, other processes? You know? So
like, in songwriting, I've learned over the last like 3 years recently, as far as like collaboration and co-writing, that there's two parts to this. There's like, practically speaking, you can write a song one day and it might take you anywhere between, depending on if you're in the flow or not, 20 minutes to like 3 hours.
Okay.
But I've learned to like never feel like a song is complete until it's recorded. So like, you might get 10 writers on a song because it started with 4, and then you show it to someone that you trust, and they're like, that's cool, but then if you said this, and they're like, and you're like, oh wow, that opens up a whole nother. And by the time it gets to the recording process, you've sat with like 6 other people, right? And now it's 10 people on the song. But it depends, because you have to like be open-handed with some of this stuff, which is such a weird thing, because like, practically speaking, it's like most people want to make the income from writing, but I think for me, it's like, if you're open-handed with a song, the song will be perfect.
You're right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's 10 different perspectives, which can get interesting. Yeah. But if you're intentional and you're like wise in that decision, it's 10 different people that walk 10 completely different like walks with the Lord, and that's 10 different wells that you get to draw from. 10 different perspectives. Right. Yeah. Views of God. You know what I mean? So I think Amanda Cook said this one time, and it kind of shook me. She said, sometimes we write songs and we work for songs, and sometimes we inherit songs from the other side of eternity, from someone that's been looking at God in the face a lot longer than we have. Wow. Man. So can you rewind that? Yeah. And say that again for people who are listening, and that kind of, She said, sometimes we work and rewrite songs. But sometimes we inherit songs from the other side of eternity, from someone that's been looking at God in the face a lot longer than we have. They've been looking at him for a millennia. Wow. And they've always discovered something new. Yeah. So sometimes they allow us to inherit their song that they're seeing and creating. So, and I think there are pockets of those songs all over the earth, but we don't necessarily recognize them until there's a moment that shows. You know? And like, I feel like Good Father is one of those. And the only reason I say that, and I use it as a reference in my songwriting classes, is there's a video on YouTube of this woman singing Good Father, like just the chorus over her like 8-month-old son. And her son isn't fussy. He's just sitting there looking at her. And as he's looking at her and she's singing, tears begin to fall out of his face. Like it's almost like as if he remembers sitting in the presence of God when the song was written. Like tears are like falling down his face, and I'm like, I can't watch this. I'll be a puddle on the floor. Right. Yeah. It's that serious. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Songwriting is interesting. Yeah, that's crazy. Now, you mentioned that you have a songwriter's kind of, is it like a course going? Genesis of Songwriting is what okay. So yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about that? Yes. So on my website, foreverydreamer.com, there's a link in there. There's a tab you can click. It's like for creatives or songwriters that want to write songs. And I call it the Genesis of Songwriting because it's like I wanted to teach people that as if they've never written a song before. Yeah. And give them all of the basics and the tools and the just lay a foundation, and then as we'll progress, I'll add more things so that we can walk through the steps of what it looks like to write a song, what it looks like to collaborate and write a song with someone else. Yeah. And then eventually I'll get to a place where me and somebody like Lucas will sit down and we'll talk about, now I have a song, what do I do? Yeah. Well, you can go and get it recorded. You can go to a studio and pay for studio time and get it recorded. You can pay musicians, whatever, blah, blah. Yeah. Or once you do all of that, it's about admin or publishing or getting the song out. So I wanted to like give them all of the tools to actually like know how to navigate the song from the concept and the idea to the lyrics and the melodies and laying it all together to the recording process to the admin, publishing, and releasing of a record. I walk them through the entire steps. So far we have the one-on-one lesson uploaded, which is just the basic foundation of songwriting. The next thing that we're about to record and upload will be the collaboration process of what that looks like.
Okay, cool. Man, that's amazing. And where can people find those courses?
At foreverydreamer.com, or if they follow me on Instagram, at IamJoe_L. The link is in my bio.
Okay, cool. We'll make sure we link that down below. Little plug for Joe.
Appreciate it, man.
You got to sew back into the ministry, man. What are you most passionate about in life, and why?
Two things, man. I'm extremely passionate about family. I come from a really big family, man.
Okay, how big?
Like, my youngest sibling is 16. My oldest sibling is in their 50s. Like, it's like I'm the second youngest of 17. Split between a bunch of marriage and divorce and adoption and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I come from a big family. My aunt had 9 children by herself. Like her and my uncle, like they had 9 children alone. You know what I'm saying? So I come from a really big family, but I'm really big on family because I've been, like I said, traveling and doing, like trying to do full-time ministry since 2014. So we're on about 8 years now. And one thing that I've seen in music and over these like last 8 years is people can become really successful in their work and in their jobs and in what they do. But somewhere along the way, they're not so successful in their relationships.
Wow.
And that's across the board. That's mainstream culture and music and like Christian culture.
Church,
like the church. Like I've seen all kinds of stuff. So like, for example, my first introduction to that was when I was a kid. People would be like, oh, pastor's kids, church kids, like the preacher's kids, the PKs, they're the worst ones. They out here blah, 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 blah. But it's just like, well, because most times pastors have to navigate the space between being a parent and being a pastor. You have to know when to be your kid's parent and not their pastor. And that's a hard thing to like walk sometimes.
It is
because like, and I don't have kids and I'm not technically not a pastor. So it's like I don't know what it's like to stand in those shoes. I do know what it's like to be in the shoes of a kid that their parent is a minister. So my mom was the evangelist of my home church. My aunts and my uncles are the pastors.
Right.
So it's like I do know what it's like to be in the position where sometimes our relatives are our pastors, not just our relatives, and that's that's a hard line to tell. Sometimes, but even to the point of like the bigger the success, the more difficult it is, and the more intentional you have to be about family. Billy Graham was literally the most prolific pastor that we knew as far as success wise. Like he was the pastor of government officials. He was a pastor of presidents and celebrities. But he would be gone for so long that he would go home and be like, hey, talking to his wife, hey, who's that little girl in the front yard? Like, is that one of the neighbor's kids? She's like, no, that's your daughter.
Oh, wow.
Because he'd been gone so long he couldn't recognize her.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
These are stories I hear. And then like someone like Quincy Jones, worth $500 million today. Like, because of, that man has so many compositions. Frank Sinatra, you name it. Like
movies too, right?
Movies, scorings, compositions, did Thriller. Like he has, like he's worth a lot of money for his compositions. Right. But he was married and divorced 4 times. And it's just like, at what point, how do you navigate the space of work and your relationships? And it's like, I would much rather be successful in my relationships if I have to choose between the two. Like I want success in my craft, for the reason that most people want success. I want this so that I can make sure that there's provision and care for this. But if I have to choose between the two, I would much rather like spend my time here with the fam. Right. And steward these relationships. That's the reason I missed out on the like Kingdom tour. I have this last tour.
Yeah.
I told the executives, I'm like, I kind of want to focus on my relationships. Like my parents are getting older. I don't know how much time I have left. Let me spend time with them. Like my little brother is 16. I don't get to spend the summertime with him during those times.
Right.
So I have to miss spending time with him for the summer. I can't do that. So I'll set this one out. So I can steward my relationships, which was a difficult decision. But man, it was, when I thought about it, I'm like, it's easy because family is really important. Other than that, my other passion would definitely be like, I want to create and write the music and the songs that inspire people to pursue their dreams, to go after the things that they feel burning in their chest. Like God put that there for a reason. And it doesn't have to always be within the four walls of the church. Some of us have to write scorings for movies. Some of us have to like have architecture in our head so we can build skyscrapers. Some of us have to like, and that's what we're called to do. We're called to be master builders, and we're called to be the light, not just within the four walls of the church. Like the light shines brightest when it's in the darkest places. So like, I think for me, I kind of want to like inspire people to pursue those things, even if no one else around them understands. Like my best friend is Nigerian, and his parents are like, you need to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, something that is secure, something that's harder to lose. So they weren't necessarily happy when he said, no, I kind of want to be a songwriter and a worship leader. His uncle, not like the same, like wasn't very excited about it. So it's like, but if that's where you feel God leading you, you have to follow that path, even if no one else understands. So I kind of want to create and write and give people the space to pursue those things, even if it's terrifying. Man. It really is too, man. I guess that's the place I'm in too. I'm
sorry,
that was a lot.
It was amazing, man. I've had this conversation with a few people on the podcast, and it's not something that is like very much celebrated or pushed in the church, because it's more like it's easier to kind of more focus on the church, right? Like the local church, corporate songs of corporate praise and worship. So I think it's tougher to say, go out and, pursue after, if God's calling you to, I don't know, be a filmmaker, or like, it's harder to encourage somebody in that, because you're like, well, that industry's dark. Don't get caught up, brother. I don't want you to fall into sin,
Oh my God.
So like, it's always attached to like a little bit of fear, like,
of course,
I'm scared that you'll fall off the deep end. And,
yes, of course they're going to project.
Sure. So I'm like, how do we do that as a church? How do we champion people? Because we have like schools of worship and all these things where we champion musicians and writers and singers, which is incredible. I've been a part of them. I've been a part of, Worship U and all these different other schools, and how do we champion those people to go into a pathway? Because I also know people who are in the industry and they're called to do that. Like, I had a wonderful conversation with Terry Crews one day, and I'm like, this man is made for this, but there's not always like that support in the church for certain things. So, I don't know. It's like, how do we as a church champion people into going into career fields, or like, aspects of art that aren't necessarily corporate worship from the stage, that aren't maybe a Maverick City style song or anything like that? How do we even begin to do that?
I mean, I've always heard the scripture in a context that I didn't necessarily like or understand, but now I think about it, it's like, if you train up a child in the way they should go, when they're older, they won't depart from it. So I think to me, it's, if you teach them about God, if you teach them how to get to Jesus, if you teach them how to listen for his voice and how to listen for the whisper and how to be guided by it, when they're older, if they're guided into a direction that you don't necessarily understand, you'll understand, like, what I did teach you was how to get to him. And if there's anybody that knows better than me, it's him. So if he's leading you there, I trust him to carry you there.
That's right.
And protect you there.
That's right.
And I think I can only trust what I instilled in you. I can only trust that. Like I can't make the decision for you. I can't force you into decide something that you don't feel called to. You know what I mean? You have the choice. You have free will given to you by God. Who am I to try to take that free will from you? I can tell you what I think is best. However, this is only a suggestion at some point. The moment that you are an adult and you can make your own decisions, I have to trust that God is going to carry you and that you're in safekeeping. And all I'm going to do is pray and cover and intercede and stand in the gap. And I will always be here for you. If you need guidance. But I think for me in that position, my mom did an amazing job of it. Now don't get me wrong, she definitely was like, you gonna sing something spiritual. You ain't gonna sing. But she always gave me the room to dream. And she always gave me the room to like, if that's what you feel God's leading you into, let's pray about it and let's go for it. Like, cause she knew that like, I knew I instilled like the things of God in your life. I knew somewhere along the line between day 1 and day 2000 something else. I've been praying for you at 3:00 every morning, covering your oil. Something is rubbed off. Something is instilled in you. I know that God has you. That's awesome. Even if I don't understand. So I think training them in the way that they should go as far as like how to get to Jesus and know his voice for themselves, and then trusting that God is going to lead them where they're actually supposed to be. And it might not be in the four walls of a church building. They might go on to, like you said, like be a filmmaker or score a film. They might go on to be a painter, and they might like design something for Apple or Google. They might go on to design something for Off-White or Louis Vuitton. They might go on into the fashion industry. They might go into acting. Like, that's right. You have to be open to wherever that is, because something about their life is going to be inspiring and impactful. My mom also said this, and we can move on to something else. She said, no matter where you go, you have to fashion your life after God's word, because the way you live your life might be the only Bible that someone gets a chance to read.
That's right. That's exactly
it.
If
I can train you up to fashion your life after the word, no matter where you go, someone will read your life. They'll watch you and how you navigate certain spaces, how you navigate certain situations. And something about that will speak volumes. More than what you say.
100%, man. 100%.
It's like you show up and give it 100% every day. And at first I was annoyed because you always had a smile on your face. Why are you always bubbly? No one's happy that much. That's why I didn't understand. And then it sparks a conversation. Was like, well, I'm happy this much because joy isn't something that's circumstantial. Like, and then it starts to snowball into something else. And a friend of mine said, you'll start to feel like home to them. Something about it starts to feel like home, and then they'll want it.
So true. No, it's so true. I get excited because I always felt like that, and it was prophesied to me. And I started off as a drummer for a lot of people know, but for Bethel and Jesus Culture. And so I did that for like 10 years, and
wasn't Jesus Culture the youth group at first?
No, the youth group was Awaken and Cry.
Okay.
And so I
was told that Jesus Culture was the youth group of Bethel first.
No.
Okay.
It was Awakening. It's not Awakening Cry. It was Awakening Youth. They changed the name, I guess, later. Awakening Youth. Then we had Awakening Young Adults.
Okay.
And then Awakening Cry, which is the intercessor prayer for, it was teenagers. Led by teenagers.
Wasn't the young adults? Okay.
That was college.
Got it.
Yeah. So that was like, we started a college group with Banning Leapshire and then local coffee shops. And so, that's kind of how I got grafted in. Was I started playing with Kim, and then Kim introduced me to the youth group. Then I started playing with the youth group, and they're like, hey, you're going to be our drummer for Jesus Culture, So it just kind of went from there. But everywhere I would go, I always get prophesied, LA and Hollywood, and I would always get called out, like, all these different prophets. And so it got to the point where I couldn't ignore it. There was like a stack of prophecies, and I was like, man, I got to explore this. So I started like opening up my heart, my mind to it more. I was even given like a card from an amazing legendary actress, who was, she's got a school here in LA, Diane Venor. Shout out to Diane Venor. She like trained me for a semester, And but she came up to Bethel one year and she gave me a card and was like, she prophesied over me. It was like, you're called to Hollywood. You're called to do this. And like just 15-minute prophecy. And I didn't call her agent. She told me to call her agent, turn in the reel. She was like, I want to get you signed. And I never did it because I was still on tour and I was so in love with music and drumming and just worshiping. But that moment where I began to shift and lean into the possibilities of heaven and in my calling in elsewhere, that's when everything started to open up for me. Make a long story short, we won't get into details. I ended up in LA and I ended up on a movie called Get Hard with Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart. And so I had these scenes. They already shot the movie, but they were the only movie to put $21 million into promotions. And they created this movie set and we did a bunch of scenes to promote the movie. I had just moved to LA. I wasn't a part of the movie, but they did these scenes to promote the movie. And that's kind of how things launched off for me. Yeah. And it led me to just do one thing after another. Then Tosh Point would call me and say, come on the show and do this, do that. And I started thinking, how can I take God into this, you know? And I just show up smiling every day, greeting people, always just felt like to love on the production crew. That was always my thing. Yeah. And so because they always get like ran over and talked down to, so I was, hey man, you need some water, bro. And they're like, bro, you're talented. No. But I was like, no, I just want to make sure you're good. And so
that sparked volumes.
Yeah, and that sparked volumes. Then that sparked conversations. And then by the time I got to a movie set, I did an indie film, or it was a SAG-AFTRA feature film. It was called Rocksteady Row. I started carrying that same heart and DNA to that set. Then the main actor, who's the villain of that movie, he kind of came over and he's like, man, what is it about you? And he had his Germanic runes out. He was doing all this, kind of like witchcraft stuff with the Germanic runes. And he's like, oh, I've learned this in my culture. I'm German. But then I started more talking about what my source of happiness was, joy was, and that happened to be God. And he was like, I always try all these different religions and things, and then nothing works out, and I always circle back to God. It's like, I want to have more conversations about that. A year later, the premiere comes out. He calls me and says, hey, remember, it's me, it's Logan. And I said, hey, how's it going? He's like, remember the conversations we had on set? And he said, I really miss those. I want to have more of those conversations about God. Can you be in my life more? I was like, oh my gosh, wow, yeah. He's like, do you still go to that church in Santa Monica? I said, yeah. He said, can I come to church with you? And I was like, what the heck? And next you know, we started becoming good friends, and then he invited me out to VH1. His wife is famous, and she's a part of a group called the Veronicas. And he invited me out to like a VH1 taping of a ceremonial thing they did in this garden. And the next, relationship bloomed. And the same thing happened when I got to another set. God showed up in the trailer, and we, the seamstress in the head of wardrobe ended up crying. And we all gathered in a circle and prayed, and the Holy Spirit fell in the wardrobe room. And I didn't want to go out that night. The Holy Spirit told me, get up and go. They said, you can come to wardrobe tonight, or you can come next Tuesday. And my now wife encouraged me, go tonight. And so all that to say is, when you're raised with that, I too was raised with the family and raised in the church, and that word is instilled to you. And then I went to BSSM and then traveled with Jesus. So now that's in me. I feel confident where I can go out here and have conversations with people who are just like, man, I don't know. And so for me, being here in LA and experiencing what I've experienced, I feel a connection with you when you say, how can we encourage people through music to live their dreams? Because there's so many people who feel called to do different things that might look different from being a pastor or a minister or a worship leader, but how do we encourage them into that without attaching fear to it? And because for me, I experience fear.
Yes, of course.
Attached to it, oh, you better watch out. You better be careful.
Of course. That's what I've learned now, is that a lot of times that your parents or your people they love you. So they're projecting their fears, and it's coming, their intentions are pure, but I always say that your good intentions don't always breed good outcomes. I think you could have the best intentions trying to like, hey, you might want to think about that for a second. Yada, yada. The success rate isn't up. You know what I mean? The success to failure ratio is off, like blah, blah, blah. And I think their intentions are pure, but sometimes it doesn't do anything but breed discouragement. It's just like, I've had moments where I never said it, but I've had moments where I'm dreaming for something, and people that I love would call me, and they're saying, well, you need to just come back and do this instead. And inside I'm like, if you're not gonna call me to encourage me, then just don't call me.
Okay, yeah.
But out loud, I'm just like, no, I don't feel like that's where God's leading me. I feel like I'm exactly where God's leading me. Even though every time I look around, nothing around me looks like what God told me. But I know what I heard. So I'm not gonna do that. I remember I was, as far as like dreams and stuff. Like I remember 2019, I was couch surfing. Okay. Like I was on Dante's couch for a week, that whole year. Like
whole year.
Yeah, that was great. 2019, like I slept on Dante's couch the entire year. Wow. It was uncomfortable, lumpy couch. Oh my, like.
But you broke it in though.
Oh, it been broken in, and that was the issue.
That was the issue.
It was
on Gangsta Lean already.
Oh my God, like you know what I mean? And I remember making like $100 Sunday if I led worship. You know what I mean? So it was like a really interesting year. And then I moved to where I live now in Covington. I moved to Covington, and I remember my mom called me and was like, baby, you've been on the road since you was 20. That was 2014, it's 2020 now. You want to just come home and try it? I'm like, Ma, I can't do that. Like, I can't do that. I love you so much, but I don't feel like that's where God led me to Covington. That's where I'm going to be until. Mind you, at this point, I'm on a twin size air mattress. The middle part, the middle like layer is like a bubble because one of the things broke. So I'm teeter-tottering through the night, like having back problems while it's the worst. It's like, and on top of that, this is like April, so pandemic just happened.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Okay. So pandemic just happened. Everything's up in the air.
So you gotta hunker down.
Oh my God! Oh yeah! Because I moved in February. Okay. And it was So I'm sitting there, and I remember I remember talking to God that night, and I'm like, Lord. Context. So my pastor just preached a sermon that Sunday about how peach trees have the ability to produce fruit in the first year that they're produced, in the first year that they're like planted. Interesting. But the vine dresser will pinch the buds because right at the first year or two, the peach tree isn't strong enough to bear the weight of the fruit. Oh, okay. So the weight of the fruit will kill the tree in the first year or two if you don't pinch the buds until the tree is strong enough to bear the weight. So from that, I translated that to my situation, and I said, God, I don't need the whole tree of fruit right now. But let one peach grow. Just let one piece of fruit grow. Right. Let one. You can pinch the rest of the buds. But this is so that I can show my people that are on my case that this thing that you have me on actually works. And I can have peace following you on this journey. I just need one. Just let one grow. Right. Go to bed that night. I wake up the next morning, and promises that dropped on Instagram. Within a week, it had 100,000 views. The week after that, it dropped on Tribal. Dang. And then a week after that, it dropped on YouTube. And by the end of the month, on YouTube, it had 2 million views. Jeez. And then the month after that, it had 4. And after that, it had 8. And it just kept, and literally, like, I'm looking around like, what is happening? Right. And I look back on that moment, I'm like, God, if that's what you did with one piece of fruit, I am scared to see what you'll do with a whole tree, G. Like, right. But I remember going to bed like really discouraged. Like, and I knew my mom had the best intentions. She was just like, one, I miss you. I haven't seen you in forever. Right, I miss having you around. And I don't want you to be out there struggling. Because if you are struggling, you won't tell me.
Right.
If you need anything, you're not gonna call me.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Why are you out there? Like, and I'm just like, I'm just following God.
Yeah.
I have to, you know what I mean? But it led to so many other things and so many other conversations and so many people that I was able to be a light in like dark places and on this side of the industry and mainstream side. Like it's a beautiful thing to see what God can do.
Right.
With just one piece of fruit.
I was gonna say, now because of your journey, that's probably had to inspire people on the other side too, because I feel like gospel music in general has always inspired. From what I've seen, gospel music has always inspired people in the mainstream as well. You know, you'll see like collabs with Nicki Minaj and I think it was Tasha Cobbs, and you know, there's always like this inspiration. Or I remember when Kim Burrell started popping, people like discover her later. I mean, we already knew it because she was from where I'm from, the Bay Area, and so. But she really started popping later, and like Tyrese Gibson, all these different people start like talking about Whitney Houston.
Oh yeah,
you know, when Whitney Houston got on to it was
they were best friends.
Yeah, it was like wow. So I always felt like, have you experienced that where you've been able to be a light in a pillar of light for people in the other community besides just the church, but more like mainstream? Yeah,
I won't mention any of the names.
Don't mention names, but
I won't mention any of the names. But yes. I have a few friends that I love with everything in me, and they're not. You would be surprised. Yeah. And I'm looking at them like, you are so special. And precious.
Right.
And not just for the reasons that you are to the world, but like simply because like your heart is so like beautiful, and you're such a sweet spirit, and like. Yes, you are under a very big magnifying glass, and yes, you have so much influence and so many things, but like God is very intentional about your life, and very interested in the waiting of like spending time with you, more than you know. You know what I mean? I've had all kinds of people like on the other side like look at Christianity and this walk with the Lord and think that it was something they had to be invited into, or they had to be born into, otherwise they weren't invited to the table.
Kind of like a social club almost?
Yeah, almost like a social club.
I've heard that.
And I'm like, oh no, like, you're welcome at any point. You can come with me to anywhere I'm at. If
come
I'm
as you are, even.
You can come right now. Yeah. Like where you, as you are. Like, and it's like, we can literally sit in your living room, my living room, and we can talk about whatever. What do you want to talk about? We can hop on a phone call, FaceTime call right now. What questions do you have? If I don't have them, we'll find them together. If I do, I'll give them to you. Like, but it's interesting how, like, a lot of people on the mainstream side, like, pay attention to the Christian side. And you would never know. They would never follow you on Instagram.
I know.
They'll never
they'll never step foot in the church.
But they follow and they pay attention, and they're curious, and they're like, well, what is this, and how does this work? And I'm like, man, because I think they have like legitimate fears. Like, if I say anything, who knows what this person will do? Who knows what they'll say? Who knows if they'll judge me or be judgmental? Who knows? Like, I don't want to let them into my life because I don't know what they're capable of as far as like wanting to utilize to get more butts in the seats of the church.
Exactly, and that's happened before.
And it's happened.
It's happened. T.I. and a few other cats said that they felt like, they were just trying to, bring more people into their church.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
and when you hear that,
I'm like, I don't want that. It's like, bro, the world doesn't ever have to know that we're friends.
Yeah, right.
Like, we don't ever have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, we literally can just be behind the scenes secret friends, and I will cover you at all points and turns, bro. Like, cover none of that. I just want to make sure that you're okay internally.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful.
I just want to get the information. I've seen some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I remember there was a time this guy was reaching out, wanting me and my team to come and like be a part of this event. Yeah. Which I want to get a hold of him so bad because everything fell apart. But wanted me to come in and do something for his wife, like an event, like anniversary vow renewal, something. And there was a guy that was not the middleman, but the middleman. So it's like the guy's assistant was talking to the middleman, and he was talking to us. And for him, it felt like it was all about the bag. He's like, yeah, it's this. Hey, I know y'all hate me, like, so let's call it an honorarium. I'm like, but the whole time, the main person's life was falling apart.
Right.
Like deaths in the family, being stranded in places, and I was like, I told my manager, I'm like, find a way to get in contact with him and tell him I will come to his house and lead worship in his living room for free. Like, I don't, that's not, I'm like, because they would like, the guy was just like, hey, the middleman was like, hey, they said that they'll pay you X amount of dollars if you could just get them into elevation. I'm like, I will make that phone call for free. The presence of God is free.
Right.
You're not about to sit here and tell, like, I don't,
oh my God.
I'm like, I will make a phone call and like, and ask to put him on the front row tomorrow. I'm like, he's falling, his life's falling apart. And he's just trying to get to Jesus. And you're trying to use it as a, no. And I, it's one of my biggest like upsets and regrets to this day that I wasn't able to get a hold of him and say, bro, I will come to your house right now. I will buy my own plane ticket. Me and my indie will come and lead worship with you and your family in your living room, and no one will ever have to know about it. Because you're just trying to get to Jesus. And there's people that are trying to stand in the way and trying to utilize your influence and try to utilize your wealth and try to utilize what they can and extract what they can from you to get it. And I'm like, that's not how the kingdom of God is supposed to ever move.
It's counterfeit gospel, man. It's not the way. The gospel is for free, man. And you never saw Jesus going around even charging for the miracles. He literally just freely gave.
And would literally tell him, like, don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. He said, keep it on the low. But you know, they couldn't. They was like, oh my gosh, I just got him. I got healed. Oh, who did that? Messiah, you know? You're like, whoa.
So they turned and were like,
we lost him again.
I actually don't know. But man, man, I've seen some crazy stuff, man. But I just want my people to know, I'm like, look, I'm always gonna be in your corner, and I'm always gonna, we're gonna walk to Jesus together.
I love your heart, man. No, it's really amazing. Like, I think you carry such an authenticity of who God is. But I think there's a depth to you. There's not like a surface kind of a feel or sort of a generic feel. There's something authentic about you, and part of it is probably because of your story, what you've gone through, what you've seen in life, how you were raised, you know. And then it's cool. You've been to the lows of lows, and then now God is like, you've waited for God to lift you up, not you make it happen yourself. And so now God is raising you up, you know, because of your faithfulness and because of, you know, your servanthood and your willingness to say yes to the call of God. So it's really amazing to see, like, you know, who you are and who you've become and who you're going to become, you know.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
As we start to wrap things up real quick, what are some other endeavors, you know, ministry opportunities and music endeavors that you're most excited about? If you can talk about them.
So, well, technically I'm not.
Okay.
Signed anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. So like,
what is Tribal? Because aren't you with Tribal? Or?
So Tribal, Mav, like they're collectors, but I'm not signed as an artist.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
And you know, I'm not signed as a publisher anyway, like that's like to any pub things yet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are on the table and in the works, but excuse me, we'll see. But as of right now, I'm what my friends call a free agent, whatever.
Very cool. Yeah.
But just finished up my EP. Like I just like finished like my EP. Just more pop stuff than worship.
Pop gospel?
Yeah, pretty much. But it's for the dreamers. It's I want to call the project Planet Love, Home of the Dreamers.
Oh, very cool.
Like I want to inspire people to like go after things that God, like I said, leading them into.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just tapping into like what, like the ins and outs of what it means to be a dreamer, like the highs, the lows, the emotional roller coasters, the some days you wake up like super confident about the call on your life, and other days you're not so sure, and like the ins and outs of it all, you know what I mean, the nuances of it. But I'm currently, now that that's done, mixed, mastered, all the things.
Oh, nice.
It's now like the plan for like distro marketing, or if I want a license, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I'm also starting on a new project of worship, so I want to do another EP of worship records.
Nice.
Things that I want to like talk about, because I think for me, I want to have a foot in both.
Yeah.
Like, because both are authentically me. Like, I love worship, just like I like 808s. Like, I really love worship, and I love like the space that is worship. Like, I love songs like Promises, Miracles, but I also love, like you said, like 808s and trap drum.
Right.
Like things that you can vibe and like I want both. One that is speaking truth about like the practical day to day. And one that is speaking truth about the eternal. Matt Redman said that to me. He said you have to be mindful of the eternal as well as the day to day. You can't be more conscious of one than the other. They have to like coexist.
Wow.
So one is practical day to day, like dreamer life. The other is worship and the eternity of how much I want to spend time with God, and how I'm looking forward to walking with Him. So my next project is working on the worship album, and then I'll probably, see what happens after that. But so I'm at a lot of records. A lot of friends have been asking me to write for their records, so I'm just writing with a lot of my friends and helping them get their projects done. Other than that, I'm in Covington. My family, my people. That's it.
I love it. I know. I love your passion for family, man. I come from a big family too, a gospel family, and my aunt was the original singer and songwriter of "Oh Happy Day," co-writer. So Edwin Hawkins. And so we.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, I grew up, having to travel with that, and then as they toured throughout Japan, and then the grandkids all went on to produce for Tupac and Exhibit, Dr. Dre, so all the grandkids went into more of the hip hop side, and they became producers. Then came to LA and got signed by Dre and different ones. Like, oh, you're gonna do the Exhibit albums, you're gonna do this, and and then some of the other cousins went on to do stuff with like Prince, Raphael Sadiq. So you always. I grew up watching family on TV. It was the weirdest thing, even like weird thing. I got a invitation from Sean Diddy Combs one day. I was on tour with Jeremy Riddle, and we thought it was spam, and I had to go in and sign like a whole waiver thing, and it was like
NDA.
It was like it was his family page, and he had discovered that the Combs family, that's his family, Sean Diddy Combs. And so he called my aunt. I was like, hey, found out we're related. And they were like, come out to the family reunion. He's like, I can't make this one, but I'll be at the next one. So I was like, this just keeps getting bigger. Like, we already have this large kind of gospel like family and musical family, but now it just keeps growing. And so I felt like that has always, had an influence on the way I was raised and all that, just like yourself. So I love though that there's something about when you're saying, oh, now I'm gonna have to say no to that tour just because family comes first. That's massive, and I feel like God will honor you for that, because I really do believe that keeping our house in order and putting that first is really like putting God first, and also family is a representation of the kingdom. And so I really love that your heart is there. So one last question we always like to ask every guest who comes onto the show. What does worship mean to you, and how do you walk that out in your everyday life?
I was always taught via Eddie James that worship is obedience unto God. The first time worship was ever mentioned in the Bible was when Abraham decides to take Isaac up to the mountain to be sacrificed. He told his two servants, you guys stay here. The boy and I are going on to worship, meaning that we're going on to obey the Lord. We're going forward to obey the Lord, which I could go into a whole nother thing. That's another thing. That's the first time worship was ever mentioned. So I think worship is obedience to God, even if it means that it could be detrimental to something that you dreamed about your entire life, which is interesting, which is why I kind of want to go to other stuff, but I won't. But yeah, it's obedience, it's devotion, it's a heart posture, it's a consistency of time with God, and out of it come the expressions. When you spend time with God and you're deeply like involved on a heart level, you'll find yourself singing because you can't help it. It's one of the releases so that you don't, because inside you'll feel like you're about to like completely combust and bust out of the seams. It's like, I have to get this out. So you sing. The overflow. I have to get this out, so you dance. I have to get this out, so I bang stuff. Like I crash the cymbals and I smack the drums. I beat the floor. It's like, there are times when I'm leading worship where I look probably absolutely crazy because I'm like smacking my hand onto the floor. It's just like I have to get this out, otherwise I'm going to actually combust. So I think for me, worship is a heart posture and it's obedience to God, but it's a devotional lifestyle. It's a relationship. Like it's a heart level, and it's interesting because I say this all the time. When you have a heart for a person and you guys spend time together, your hearts become intertwined. You burn for what they burn for. Yes. If you spend time with God enough, you'll realize that God actually burns for his people. So then you'll burn for his people. You'll love people. You'll be kind to people. You'll embrace people. You'll be invitational to people. So, but to answer your question, that's what I personally think worship is, and it's important to me because it's such a like complex like concept because worship is the obedience and it's a reverence and it's a gift that we get to give to the Lord, but there's times that it can be very rare as a gift. Bill Johnson said that in the time of loss and grieving and lamenting in the dark hours, you get to give God the rare gift of worship, and it becomes rare because on the other side of eternity there is no sorrow. There is no loss, there's no pain, there's no grieving when you're in the presence of God. So that's the only time that we can give him something that we can't give him over there. And I think that that's what makes like worship so special on this side of eternity, because like there's always mischief and trouble and problems. So in the midst of the chaos on this side that doesn't exist on that side, we get to give God this very special gift of worship and devotion. So that's why I feel like it's special to me personally. But
Matt Redman once said that worship is a response to revelation. Sometimes I like to think that worship is a place of continual abiding and communing with him, with the Holy Spirit, and with the Father and the Son, until you look like and smell like the fragrance of the Father. You know, it's like you look like you smell like him. So when you go out, everything is just an overflow from your daily just communing, abiding, you know. So
you look like and you smell like him. That's good.
That's always been a desire. It's like, I want to look like and smell like Jesus.
I want to look and smell like him.
You know, like when you go places, the fragrance of the Lord is upon you, you know, and it goes before you, you know, and that's just, I don't know. I just find that fascinating. That's a beautiful place to be.
It's almost like the redemptive nature of like the Jacob and Esau revelation. Like Jacob tried to be Esau, like put the hair on so he can look like and smell like.
That's
to
right.
receive the blessing.
And
then Jesus decides to redeem that concept and sacrifice himself so that like whenever we step for the Father, we look like and smell like Jesus, to receive the blessing and the favor that is rightfully Jesus's. That's interesting. That's interesting.
That'll be the next podcast.
That's interesting.
We'll unpack that, man.
That's interesting. Thank you for having me, man.
One last thing. What's something that you can share with people out there who may have lost faith or hope in Jesus?
Man, something that I would say to someone that's lost faith. That's interesting. I think that's an interesting question.
Take your time.
There's so much I want to say. Oh my God.
Just give me the abbreviated version because I don't want to overwhelm you, man.
No, you're not overwhelming me. Okay, so when you said that, a friend of mine, Ben Hastings, do you know who that is? Mm-mm. Benjamin Hastings.
I've heard of the name, but I don't know him.
So he's an artist with Hillsong, and he wrote a song called "Faith Is." And one of the crazy things that he said is, "If faith is a gift, then give it to me." So I think for the people that have lost faith in God, more than likely they've probably just been disappointed. They put faith in something, and they bet their all on it, and it just didn't work out, and they've lost faith due to that circumstance. And I think that if you just, not in the four walls of a church per se, but if you just keep showing up to meet with him, the real Jesus, not the Jesus that we've always been taught to know, but the real Jesus, and give him space and room and time, I guarantee your faith will come back. Yeah. Because the first time that he said this, the first time we met, you chose me. This time I'm choosing you. Wow. This time I'm choosing you because, man, sometimes our faith is circumstantial. It's like, I have faith in you until this. I believe you until this, which is humanistic of us. That's our human nature. Yeah. It's like, I believe in him until my mom doesn't receive the healing that you promised. Wow. I believe in you until the situation that I'm in doesn't turn out. You know what I mean? I've seen it so many times where people will be like, God, if you do this to me, I'll never forgive you. Circumstantial. Yeah. Our faith is often circumstantial. Which is such an interesting thing. But I think for me, I went through this season of, I'm going to abandon everything that I thought that I knew about you, everything I was taught to know about you. Wow. And I'm going to give you the room and the space to teach me who you actually are. The things that I abandoned that I needed to, you'll reteach me and I'll keep them. But this is the best way I know how to weed out the things that I was wrong about. Wow. You know what I mean? I want to get rid of the concept that you're bloodthirsty and you're angry and hate me and want to zap me every day that I wake up. I want to get rid of the idea that says that you were a tyrant or you're a distant, disappointed dictator. You're a judge on your seat, and it's Satan as the prosecutor and Jesus as my defense attorney. And like, I want to get rid of that. Like, I want you to teach me who you actually are. I don't want to see you as Zeus anymore. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't want to see you as the person that's just like, well, if I feel like healing today, I will. That's not healing is like what you do. Right. And that's your heart for me. But that takes time, and I think if you just give him the space to reintroduce himself to you, I think your faith will come back. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Joel, thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. And I don't know, man, I just have a feeling that we're going to do this more again in the future. I'm about it. I'm about it. Lucas is about it too. We have to do something with Lucas and Evelyn too, but they want to get in on one with you. But we'll talk more. Honestly, we're just so blessed to have you on here, man. And blessed to be here, man. I just feel like I just got to sit down and take a journey through your heart for a moment and then come back now. Yeah, for sure. Well, God bless you, brother. Bless you too, man. Love you. Yeah. Blessings, man.